When World War I trenches demanded better protection, Germany answered with the Stahlhelm, a design so revolutionary it defined military headgear for decades. By World War II, it was more than armor, it was psychological warfare. But how did this helmet, born in mud and blood, outshine Allied designs to earn its legendary king status? This is the story of how historical necessity forged an icon. We'll trace its journey from the killing fields of Verdun to the factories of the Third Reich, examining how political, industrial, and military forces shaped its development. Join us as we uncover why the Stahlhelm became the most influential combat helmet in history. By 1915, World War I had devolved into a stalemate of industrialized slaughter. In the trenches of the Western Front, artillery shells rained down relentlessly, creating a storm of metal fragments that accounted for nearly 70% of all casualties. The German army's iconic Pickelhaube leather helmets with brass spikes offered no meaningful protection against this new reality. The crisis reached a breaking point during the Battle of Verdun, where German forces suffered catastrophic losses. In response, the German High Command commissioned Professor Friedrich Schwerd of Hanover Technical Institute to develop a steel helmet based on analysis of 4,000 head wound cases. This wasn't merely an engineering challenge, it was a historical imperative to save lives. The resulting Model 1916 Stahlhelm represented a radical departure from all previous designs. While France and Britain had already introduced steel helmets, the Adrian and Brodie, the German solution was fundamentally different. Where Allied helmets focused on protecting against vertical shrapnel, the Stahlhelm's distinctive coal scuttle shape provided unprecedented coverage for the neck, ears, and sides of the head. The historical context of Germany's industrial capacity made this possible. Unlike Britain and France, Germany had retained advanced steel manufacturing capabilities despite the war. The Stahlhelm was pressed from a single sheet of chromium nickel steel using complex industrial processes, a feat only possible within Germany's wartime economy. The impact was immediate. Within months of its introduction in 1916, head wounds among German troops decreased by 70%. This statistical improvement occurred during some of the war's bloodiest battles, including the Somme and Passchendaele. The Stahlhelm had proven itself not just as equipment, but as a historical response to the industrialized slaughter of modern warfare. Yet this success came with historical irony. The same helmet that saved German soldiers also became a symbol of the aggressive militarism that had plunged Europe into war. Even in 1916, the Stahlhelm was more than protection. It was an embodiment of Germany's determination to fight to the bitter end, foreshadowing the ideological battles to come. The Stahlhelm's evolution between the world wars mirrors Germany's turbulent history. After the 1918 armistice, the Treaty of Versailles severely restricted Germany's military capabilities, yet the Stahlhelm survived, transforming from battlefield equipment to political symbol during the Weimar Republic. During this period, the helmet became a potent symbol for nationalist groups like the Stahlhelm, Bund der Funzel Steel Helmet League of Frontline Soldiers. This paramilitary organization, numbering over 500,000 members by 1930, used the helmet as a visual rallying cry against the perceived humiliation of Versailles. The historical context here is crucial. The Stahlhelm had already transcended its military function to become a political icon. When Hitler rose to power in 1933, he co-opted this symbolism. The Nazi regime recognized the helmet's power to evoke Germany's military heritage while projecting strength. In 1935, as Germany openly rearmed in defiance of Versailles, the M35 Stahlhelm was introduced, a redesign that reflected both technological advancement and political ambition. The M35 represented a historical convergence of factors: Germany's industrial revival under the four-year plan, the regime's emphasis on technological superiority, and the need for mass production as military expansion accelerated. The helmet's rolled edges, improved ventilation, and adjustable liner system weren't just improvements, they were statements of German engineering prowess. As historical circumstances shifted, so did the helmet. The M40 of 1940 reflected Germany's early wartime confidence, with simplified manufacturing that allowed for rapid production during the blitzkrieg campaigns. By 1942, the M42 revealed a different historical reality. Germany was now fighting a defensive war on multiple fronts with dwindling resources. The M42's crude finish, unrolled edges, and simplified vents weren't design choices, they were historical necessities. Allied bombing campaigns had disrupted German industry, and raw materials were increasingly scarce. Each M42 helmet produced in 1944-5 tells the story of a nation under siege, sacrificing quality for quantity in a desperate attempt to equip its forces. Throughout this evolution, specialized variants emerged for specific historical contexts. The Fallschirmjäger helmet, with its cut edges and modified liner, reflected Germany's development of airborne warfare after observing early Allied experiments. The helmet's design was directly influenced by historical events like the German airborne assault on Crete in 1941. The Stahlhelm's evolution is thus a historical barometer. Each model and variant reflects the political, military, and industrial circumstances of its time. From the defensive trenches of World War I to the aggressive expansion of the early 1940s, and finally to the desperate defensive battles of 1944-45, the helmet's design changes mirror Germany's shifting fortunes in the first half of the 20th century. To understand the Stahlhelm's historical significance, we must examine its design through the lens of the technological and medical context of its time. The helmet wasn't created in a vacuum. It was a response to specific historical challenges in ballistics, metallurgy, and battlefield medicine. In the early 1900s, military medicine was grappling with the new physics of industrialized warfare. Artillery shells produced fragmentation patterns unlike anything seen before. Professor Schwerd's research, based on thousands of wound cases, revealed that most head injuries came from fragments traveling at oblique angles, not vertically from above. This historical medical insight directly shaped the Stahlhelm's design. The helmet's distinctive shape was a historical response to this ballistic reality. The flared sides and deep neck guard protected against fragments coming from multiple directions, a crucial advantage in trench warfare where explosions could come from any angle. This design philosophy differed fundamentally from Allied helmets, which were primarily optimized for overhead protection. The materials used in the Stahlhelm reflected Germany's historical leadership in steel production. The chromium-nickel alloy was developed by Krupp, a company with deep historical ties to German militarism. This steel was 1.1 millimeter thick and hardened through a specific heat treatment process that balanced hardness with flexibility, preventing the helmet from shattering upon impact. Manufacturing the Stahlhelm required industrial capabilities that were historically specific to Germany. The complex multi-stage pressing process needed specialized hydraulic presses capable of exerting tremendous force. This wasn't just an engineering choice, it was a historical reflection of Germany's advanced industrial base compared to other nations at the time. The liner system, too, was a product of its historical context. The 8-finger leather design distributed weight evenly, addressing the historical problem of helmet fatigue during extended trench warfare. The small airspace between steel and head provided ventilation, a crucial feature in the static, disease-ridden environment of World War I trenches where heat exhaustion was a constant threat. Even the helmet's weight, approximately 1.113 kilograms, reflected historical trade-offs. While heavier than some Allied helmets, the Stahlhelm's superior coverage was deemed worth the extra burden. This decision was validated by historical casualty data showing that head wounds were disproportionately fatal compared to other injuries. The Stahlhelm's design genius thus lies in its historical responsiveness. Every feature, from the steel composition to the shape to the liner system, was a direct response to specific historical conditions of early 20th century warfare. It wasn't just a helmet, it was a historical solution to the unprecedented lethality of modern combat. The Stahlhelm's battlefield reputation must be understood within the historical context of Germany's early World War II victories. During the blitzkrieg campaigns of 1939-1941, the helmet became synonymous with German military dominance. Its silhouette struck fear into enemies who had witnessed the seemingly invincible Wehrmacht roll across Europe. This psychological impact was amplified by historical propaganda. Nazi newsreels deliberately showcased the Stahlhelm's imposing profile, framing it as a symbol of Aryan superiority. The helmet wasn't just equipment, it was a historical actor in the theater of psychological warfare designed to intimidate before a single shot was fired. For German soldiers, the helmet's historical significance was deeply personal. Many wore it with pride, viewing it as a link to the military traditions of Imperial Germany. The helmet's design consciously evoked the medieval Gothic soleil, creating a historical lineage that connected modern soldiers to Germany's martial past. This historical symbolism boosted morale and fostered unit cohesion. The Stahlhelm's battlefield performance was historically documented in after-action reports. German medical records consistently show lower rates of head wounds compared to Allied forces, even when accounting for different tactical situations. This historical data validated the helmet's design and reinforced soldiers' trust in it. As the war's historical context shifted, so did the helmet's battlefield role. During the defensive battles of 1943-45, the Stahlhelm became a symbol of resilience. German soldiers, often outnumbered and outgunned, took comfort in the helmet's proven protection. Historical accounts from the Eastern Front describe soldiers' reliance on their Stahlhelms during the brutal fighting. The helmet's reputation extended beyond German forces. Allied soldiers often viewed captured Stahlhelms as valuable trophies, not just as souvenirs, but as historical artifacts representing a defeated enemy. Many Allied soldiers kept detailed records of where and when they captured their helmets, recognizing their historical significance. International reactions to the Stahlhelm were historically revealing. Several countries either purchased German helmets or developed their own versions based on the design. This wasn't mere imitation, it was a historical acknowledgement of the helmet's superiority. Nations like Spain and Chile, with historical ties to German military advisors, adopted Stahlhelm-inspired designs for their own forces. The Stahlhelm's battlefield impact is thus inseparable from its historical context. It was both a product of its time and a shaper of historical events. From the psychological warfare of blitzkrieg to the desperate defense of the Reich, the helmet played a role in the historical narrative of World War II that extended far beyond its function as protective equipment. To understand why the Stahlhelm became known as the king of World War II helmets, we must compare it within its historical context. Each major combatant's helmet design reflected their unique historical circumstances, industrial capacity, military doctrine, and combat experience. The American M1 helmet, introduced in 1941, was a product of America's historical industrial might. Its simple two-piece design was optimized for mass production, reflecting America's ability to equip vast forces quickly. The M1's lighter weight and separate liner system suited America's historical doctrine of highly mobile warfare. However, its limited coverage revealed America's historical inexperience with trench warfare compared to European powers. The British Brodie helmet and its successors were shaped by Britain's historical military priorities. Originally designed for World War I trench warfare, its shallow, bold design reflected Britain's historical focus on colonial policing rather than European land warfare. The helmet's simplicity allowed for rapid production across Britain's historical global empire, but its limited coverage became increasingly apparent as World War II's combat intensity grew. The Soviet SH-40 helmet was a direct response to historical necessity. When Germany invaded in 1941, the USSR faced an existential crisis requiring massive mobilization. The SH-40's simple design could be produced quickly in evacuated factories, often by unskilled workers, including women and teenagers. Its reasonable coverage balanced protection with the historical reality of Soviet industrial limitations during the Great Patriotic War. The German Stahlhelm, by contrast, reflected Germany's historical approach to military engineering. Its complex design was the result of deliberate pre-war planning and investment. The helmet's superior coverage revealed Germany's historical understanding of modern warfare's lethality, gained through painful World War I experience. Even as wartime pressures forced simplifications, the fundamental design philosophy remained rooted in this historical context. Let's examine how historical context shaped each helmet's development. A protection, the Stahlhelm's superior coverage reflected Germany's historical trauma from World War I head wounds. Allied helmets, designed by nations with less intense World War I trench experience, prioritized other factors. This historical difference in combat experience directly shaped helmet design philosophy. Manufacturing each helmet revealed its nation's historical industrial strengths. America's mass production capabilities produced the simple M1. Britain's global empire supplied materials for the Brodie. The Soviets' command economy enabled rapid SH-40 production. Germany's advanced engineering created the complex Stahlhelm until historical circumstances forced simplification. Doctrine, military doctrine, shaped by historical experience, influenced helmet design. Germany's historical emphasis on initiative and aggressive tactics favored comprehensive protection. America's historical focus on logistics and mobility prioritized lighter weight. Britain's historical naval focus meant less investment in army equipment. The Soviets' historical doctrine of mass sacrifice accepted simpler protection. The Stahlhelm's king status thus emerges from historical context. It wasn't just technically superior, it was historically responsive to the specific challenges of modern warfare in a way that reflected Germany's unique military experience and industrial capabilities. Within its historical moment, it represented the pinnacle of helmet design. The Stahlhelm's symbolism evolved dramatically through different historical contexts, reflecting Germany's changing relationship with its military past. Each era projected different meanings onto this iconic shape, revealing how historical circumstances shape our interpretation of material culture. During the Third Reich, the Stahlhelm was deliberately woven into Nazi historical mythology. Propaganda films and posters presented it as a modern incarnation of ancient Germanic warrior helmets, creating a false historical lineage that connected the Nazi regime to a mythologized past. This historical manipulation was intentional, using the helmet to legitimize Nazi ideology through fabricated historical continuity. After Germany's defeat in 1945, the historical context shifted dramatically. Under Allied occupation, the Stahlhelm became a symbol of a discredited regime. In West Germany, the adoption of the American-style M1 helmet in 1955 represented a deliberate historical break with the militaristic past. This was more than a change in equipment. It was a historical statement about West Germany's new democratic identity. East Germany took a different historical approach. When the National Volksarmee formed in 1956, it adopted a modified Stahlhelm design. This choice reflected East Germany's historical narrative that positioned itself as the anti-fascist successor to progressive German traditions, including the technical achievements of the Weimar Republic. The helmet became a historical symbol of this contested legacy. The The Stahlhelm's historical influence extended globally. In Latin America, nations with historical ties to German military advisors adopted Stahlhelm-inspired designs. Chile's military still uses these helmets for ceremonial purposes, a historical legacy of German military influence in the region. These international adaptations show how the helmet transcended its origins to become part of global military history. In popular culture, the Stahlhelm's historical symbolism has evolved. Early post-war films used it as a simple visual shorthand for a German enemy. By the 1970s, films like Cross of Iron began exploring the helmet's historical complexity. Today, video games and documentaries often present it with greater historical nuance, acknowledging both its technical significance and its troubling associations. The helmet's historical legacy is perhaps most visible in collector culture. Collectors don't just preserve artifacts, they preserve historical memory. Each Stahlhelm model and variant represents a specific historical moment, from the confidence of the M35 to the desperation of late-war M42s. Through these objects, collectors engage with historical interpretation, preserving physical evidence of the past. The Stahlhelm's historical significance is thus multifaceted. It represents technological innovation, military doctrine, political ideology, and cultural memory. Its meaning has shifted dramatically through different historical contexts, from symbol of German resilience to tool of Nazi propaganda to contested historical artifact. This evolving symbolism is perhaps its most profound historical legacy. The modern fascination with the Stahlhelm must be understood as a historical phenomenon. Collectors, reenactors, and museums aren't just preserving objects, they're engaging with historical interpretation and memory. Each helmet tells a story about the historical moment in which it was created and used. For collectors, the Stahlhelm represents a tangible connection to history. An M35 helmet with early war decals carries the historical context of Germany's initial military successes. A late war M42 with rough finish embodies the historical reality of Germany's industrial collapse. Collectors value these objects not just as artifacts, but as historical documents that can be read and interpreted. The historical context of collecting itself has evolved. In the immediate post-war years, Stahlhelms were often viewed simply as war trophies. By the 1970s, collecting became more systematic, with emphasis on historical accuracy and provenance. Today, collectors approach these helmets with greater historical nuance, acknowledging both their technical significance and their troubling association. As reenactment communities play a unique role in historical interpretation. By wearing reproduction Stahlhelms in living history displays, reenactors create immersive historical experiences that help the public understand the past. This form of historical engagement goes beyond academic study, allowing people to physically connect with history. Museums approach the Stahlhelm with particular historical responsibility. Institutions like the German Historical Museum present these helmets within their full historical context, explaining both their technical innovation and their role in Nazi Germany. This balanced approach to historical interpretation helps visitors understand the complexity of military artifacts. The market for reproduction Stahlhelms reveals changing historical attitudes. Early reproductions were often crude and lacked historical accuracy. Modern replicas, based on extensive historical research, precisely replicate specific models and their manufacturing details. This evolution reflects a growing historical sophistication among enthusiasts and the public. The Stahlhelm's modern resonance extends beyond military history. Its shape has influenced contemporary design, from motorcycle helmets to fashion. These modern adaptations often spark historical debates about appropriate use and cultural memory. The helmet's historical weight makes its contemporary appropriation inherently controversial. Perhaps most importantly, the ongoing fascination with the Stahlhelm represents a form of historical memory. In preserving, studying, and interpreting these helmets, people engage with the difficult history of 20th century warfare. This historical engagement isn't just about the past, it's about understanding how material culture shapes our relationship to history. Like any historically significant object, the Stahlhelm is surrounded by myths and misconceptions that reveal how historical memory evolves. Separating fact from fiction requires understanding the historical context in which these narratives emerged. The myth of the Stahlhelm's invincibility emerged from historical propaganda. Nazi newsreels exaggerated the helmet's protective capabilities, presenting it as proof of German technological superiority. This historical propaganda was so effective that the myth persists today, despite clear historical evidence that no World War II helmet could reliably stop rifle rounds at close range. Another misconception is that all Stahlhelms were of equal quality. Historical reality tells a different story. The M35, produced during Germany's pre-war industrial peak, represented the highest quality. By 1944, historical circumstances, bombing campaigns, and resource shortages had severely degraded manufacturing standards. This historical variation in quality is often overlooked in popular narratives. The historical debate about the Stahlhelm's effectiveness versus other helmets often misses crucial context. Comparing the Stahlhelm to the American M1 without considering their different historical design priorities creates false equivalences. The Stahlhelm was optimized for maximum protection based on World War I experience, while the M1 balanced protection with mass production needs. Perhaps the most significant historical criticism is the helmet's association with Nazi atrocities. Some argue that celebrating its design ignores this historical context. This debate reflects broader historical questions about how we engage with objects from problematic periods. Can we acknowledge technical achievement while confronting historical evil? The historical reality is complex. The Stahlhelm saved lives regardless of the wearer's ideology. Its design was the product of historical circumstances that preceded the Nazi regime, yet its most iconic use was under Hitler's rule. This historical duality makes the Stahlhelm a challenging object to interpret, neither entirely innocent nor solely defined by its Nazi associations. Addressing these myths and misconceptions doesn't diminish the Stahlhelm's historical significance. Instead, it leads to a more nuanced understanding of how objects become embedded in historical memory. The myths themselves reveal as much about changing historical attitudes as the facts reveal about the helmet's actual performance. As we conclude our historical exploration of the German Stahlhelm, we return to our central question: why did it become known as the king of World War II helmets? The answer lies not in any single factor, but in its unique historical position at the intersection of technology, warfare, and memory. The Stahlhelm earned its title through historical responsiveness. Born from the specific historical trauma of World War I trench warfare, it addressed the real and urgent need for better head protection. Its design wasn't arbitrary, it was a historical solution to the unprecedented lethality of industrialized combat. Its historical evolution reflects Germany's changing fortunes, from the defensive trenches of World War I to the aggressive expansion of the early 1940s, and finally to the desperate defensive battles of 1944-45. Each modification tells a historical story. The helmet became a historical barometer of Germany's military and industrial condition. Within its historical context, the Stahlhelm represented the pinnacle of helmet design. Its superior protection, innovative manufacturing, and psychological impact set it apart from contemporaries. Yet this superiority must be understood historically. No helmet exists outside the circumstances that created it. The Stahlhelm's historical legacy extends beyond its battlefield performance. It became a powerful symbol that evolved through different historical contexts, from military equipment to political icon to contested historical artifact. This evolving symbolism reveals how objects carry changing meanings across time. Today, the Stahlhelm continues to resonate because it represents a pivotal historical moment in the evolution of military technology. It stands at the intersection of traditional craftsmanship and industrial mass production, of defensive necessity and psychological warfare, of technical achievement and moral complexity. The Stahlhelm became the king of World War II helmets, not through any inherent superiority, but through its historical significance. It represents a specific historical response to specific historical challenges, shaped by Germany's unique military experience and industrial capabilities. Its story is ultimately about how history shapes technology, and how technology in turn shapes history. In understanding the Stahlhelm historically, we gain insight not just into a piece of military equipment, but into the complex relationship between technology, warfare, and human experience. Its legacy reminds us that even the most functional objects carry historical weight, and that understanding this weight is essential to understanding our past. We've explored the historical journey of the German Stahlhelm and how it became known as the king of World War II helmets. Now we want to hear from you. What do you think was the most historically significant combat helmet of the 20th century? Was it the German Stahlhelm with its World War I origins, the American M1 that equipped Allied forces, or perhaps another design we didn't cover in depth? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Do you have a personal connection to any of these helmets through family history or collecting? We'd love to hear your historical perspectives and stories. If you found this historical exploration as fascinating as we did, there's more where that came from. Our channel examines military history through the lens of technology and material culture. Hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss our upcoming videos on the historical evolution of body armor, the technology behind trench warfare, and the development of other iconic military equipment. Finally, if you know someone who's interested in military history or the historical relationship between technology and warfare, please share this video with them. The more people we can engage with these important historical topics, the better we can understand our past. Thanks for joining us on this historical journey through the story of the German Stahlhelm. It's been a privilege to explore this remarkable piece of history with you. Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep exploring the historical forces that shape our world.